Hello everyone and welcome to Merlin's Manor. Today I'm going to be reviewing 4 Ravensburger games that are new to our family. We've had a chance to play them and see what we think about them. 2 of them are fairly new and 2 of them are about a year or 2 old. And so I'm going to start with the newest one. Before we get into that though, I want to talk about Ravensburger for just a moment. Now Ravensburger has a lot of games that are very lightweight, very good for introducing people to the board game hobby. For those who are new, they're not going to be too complex. They also don't have probably the highest quality components, and they're not going to have the biggest challenges out there. But they are oftentimes very fun games, and they go after a bunch of different types of IPs, which is also pretty cool that you can get these different things that you already enjoy and like, and then can play in a board game format. And so let's go ahead and look at these. I'm going to start with the newest game, the one that's just come out. And that is Horrified American Monsters. And so we got Horrified right here that we have had for a while now, and we enjoyed it. And so we wanted to get the American Monsters version, and it has been fun. We've only had 3 playthroughs of this so far, but we have enjoyed it. Horrified, we don't play a whole lot either of the original one, just because it seems like it doesn't have as big replayability as I would like. But it is enjoyable, and to come back and mix and match the different monsters is a lot of fun. And so here, Horrified, now the biggest question people probably have on their minds is it worth getting Horrified American Monsters if you've already played the original Horrified? Is it going to change things up enough? I want to say this much: the mechanics are almost identical in the games, and even the powers that your investigators have are the same exact powers, just different people. But where there's some difference coming in here with Horrified American Monsters is the actual monsters themselves. All 6 monsters in here have a different puzzle than the monsters from the original game. And so you are going to get that difference in the way you handle the monsters and treat them. Especially Bigfoot has its own very unique way of treating Bigfoot. Now, one thing I wanted to say while I'm on Bigfoot here is that there is some quality control issues that came into this game. Now the components are as what you would expect from a Ravensburger game. Even the miniatures themselves are a little bit better than the original Horrified, in my opinion. But where the quality control comes in is in the rule book and in one of the pieces. And so let me get into that real quick. First of all, Bigfoot, it's unclear exactly how he's supposed to move. It says in the rule book that he rolls first, and then if there's no, or at least if there's no investigators, he rolls first, and then he will move like other monsters. And so one would assume that means he's going to move towards investigators or citizens just like the other monsters would do. But the caveat here is he doesn't want to stop on a space where there are investigators. And so, and it doesn't say anything about what happens other than the fact that he gets an extra movement if he lands on a space, if he ends his turn on a space with an investigator. And so which way is he supposed to go from that point? Does he keep going the way he was going? Does he turn back? What exactly does he do there? And thematically, why is he going towards the investigators when he probably should be trying to get away from them? And so there's a lot of issues as far as how that goes. One person came up with an idea of drawing a token from the bag and if there's the first token that has no investigators drawing from the bag, then that becomes his target location, and he starts heading that direction. And if he lands on an investigator, he keeps going on towards that. And that would be a good solution, but at the same time, this is something that Ravensburger should have thought of and put something in there about how exactly that's supposed to work. Another issue that I found is that one of the tokens says police station, and there is no police station. And from what I can tell, that's supposed to actually go on the sheriff's station. And so that's just kind of a little oopsie. They didn't take a look at what they were doing when they were producing this, and that one slipped through the quality control. There's also several typos in the instruction manual, which that's not the biggest deal. I'm not going to make a big deal out of that, although that's something that should have been caught by a proofreader. There is also, though, one typo that is of issue in the rule book, and that is Bigfoot's, I think it's Bigfoot's initiative, if you will. I can't think of what they call that right now, but what order he goes in. There's a discrepancy between the rule book and the card, and I believe he's supposed to go by the card. And so that should have been something that would have been fixed before the game came to print, but nobody caught that yet again, and so people were left to either guess or go online and figure out what was supposed to be done there. And so it seems like this game was rushed in some ways, but it's still a lot of fun. Is it worth getting if you have Horrified? I think so. I've enjoyed the different puzzles. It gives a little bit more longevity to this style of game. It's unfortunate there's not an official way to cross over with the original game. That would have been nice to be able to have a way that you can do that, but everything's just so different. There's no way to do that. And so some people I think have started to try to figure that out, but I don't see an easy way of making that work well. But it would have been nice to have that crossover. But overall, I'd say this is a solid game. I recommend you check it out if you enjoyed the original Horrified. I believe there is enough difference there. I just kind of disappointed with some of the quality control issues. And hopefully they're able to fix that and get things nailed down a little bit better for a second edition or second printing. And also give some official word on what's supposed to be done with Bigfoot. And that would be nice. Anyway, so that's the first game there. Horrified, American Monsters. Next game I want to talk about is Gargoyles. Now, if you were a fan of the Gargoyles series, you heard about this game coming out, you're probably pretty excited. And so we started rewatching the Gargoyles just because this game came out. And so let's get into the game itself. I think it's produced, again, about the same quality you would expect from a Ravensburger game. It's got the gargoyles themselves are pretty nice, the miniatures. There's a bit of replayability in that the way the cards kind of work and all that, but I don't think it has a lot of replayability because there's only 3 cooperative scenarios and 1 competitive scenario. And even though there's some mix-up in changing up which characters you're using, that adds a little bit of replayability. But to me, we played the 3 cooperative scenarios and haven't been back to it since. And that was a couple months ago now, or about a month and a half ago now. And so I don't see this being one that we're going to keep around for a long, long time. We'll probably give the scenarios another few playthroughs with different characters, but then eventually I think we're going to move on from this game. It is fun to play, though. I would recommend at least giving it a try out, but don't expect it to have that longevity that you get from a lot of other games. I think it's, at least in my opinion, it's going to get a little old fairly quick. You might get about 10 playthroughs before you start saying, let's move on. Or maybe you just enjoy switching up the different characters and all that, and you'll get more playthroughs out of it that way. To each their own. But to me, it didn't have a lot of replayability, even though I have enjoyed the mechanics. It plays very well, and the pieces are as good as you would like to have. You got some interesting buildings that you have on there that are nice. So the components, I really appreciate them. They're good. Especially, as far as you consider for a Ravensburger game, they are on par, maybe a little above par there for a Ravensburger game. So there we go. Next one we picked up recently was Jungle Cruise. Now this one, I believe, was a 2020 game. I think it was around June 2020 that it came out. And this is based off of the Disney ride Jungle Cruise. And this is a game where you kind of roll the dice and move and do things along the way. And so if you're looking to take games that are just a very basic roll and add something to it that's going to be a little more interesting, a little more fun, this might be a good game to go with. It's great for families. Our kids played it and enjoyed it when they played it. What you're going to do is you're basically just rolling your dice, moving your boat along the jungle river there, and then you are trying to keep your passengers safe. Different things come up that can cause you to lose a passenger, and so you want to try and you also want to try and mitigate that by trying to have the best passengers at the end to get you the most points. And the ones that get you the most points are going to be ones that are basically the special family that they have a symbol on them to tell you that they're from that family. And so along the way, you're going to get some clues if you go an extra long route, and that will tell you which ones they are not going to be. And so that you can kind of, if you go that route, you can know which ones aren't as important to save and get the most points that way, because you're probably not going to make it with all of your people intact. There are ways you can get people back. There's also goods that you can pick up along the way, different crates of different things that give you points. If you have 3 of one kind, three different types, all 3 different types, one whole set of that, then you'll get 10 points for that. And you get other points for having partial sets, or just 1 point if you just have the one good by itself. And so you got different things that you can do along the way planning, strategizing where you put things on your boat, because there's certain areas that are safer. The middle row is safer than the outsides. Also, when you roll, you are doing different hazards based on how many places you're able to move. The faster you move, the more hazards you're going to pick up, and you're going to have 4 different cards to pick from. If you roll a 4, you're going to do all 4 of them. If you roll a 2, you're only going to do 2 of them, and you can pick which ones you're going to do. There's an area of the boat that you're not as concerned about. You might go after the hazards that only affect that area of the boat. Especially if there's only an area of the boat that you have nobody there and no cargo there. That's easy choice. Just go ahead and lose nothing. And other places you might have 1 dice that you're going to roll for the hazard, others 2 or 3. And so you might want to go after the one that only has you roll 1 hazard dice, and then hope that you don't lose anything, or at the most you're going to lose 1 with that 1 hazard. And so there's different ways that you can strategize and mitigate there along the way. And also another part of that is, do you want to go the long route to get all the clues so you can maximize the right survivors by the end there? Or do you want to rush and get to the end faster, and you can get extra tips that way? Because the first person that gets to the end gets the 3-point tip, and then they get a new tip every time their turn rolls around until all the tips are gone. And so you might want to rush and get there, but you may not have the right passengers saved in the end. But do you care if you have the right ones saved, or you want to get there as fast as you can, avoid as many hazards as you can along the way, because you're getting there faster, and also get those tips going quicker? And so you have different strategies there. And so I think it's a very interesting type of roll and move game. A lot of the roll and move types games aren't that interesting, but I think this one adds some levels of strategy that make it a pretty cool game overall. And the last one I want to talk about is Minecraft Builders and Biomes. This is probably my favorite of these games that I'm reviewing today. It's great for our family. Our family all love to play Minecraft, and so I wanted to get this game for a while and decided to finally go ahead and get it. And we haven't been disappointed. It's got a lot of interesting features to it. You are basically traveling around uncovering different tiles, and when you uncover that, you find out if it's a building, you find out what building materials you need to build it. If it's a mob, you find out how many hearts it has and what benefit you get from killing that mob. And you have this little deck that you start out with of tiles that you have a few weapons and then some poisonous potatoes. And the poisonous potatoes basically are in there to weaken your deck. If you get those, they're not worth anything as far as trying to kill mobs. And the other ones have different hearts that they are able to do, whether it's 1, 2, 3, or 4. Of course, in your starting deck, you only have one that's 1 heart and the 2 heart ones. And so you're not going to be able to do a whole lot of damage in the beginning, but you can pick up weapons that are around the edge. And once you uncover those, you can use an action to pick up one of those weapons and have stronger weapons and more weapons. Sometimes the weapons, if you reveal them, have other abilities on them, like being able to give you a building block, or being able to let you choose and get 1 extra draw when you're fighting a mob, because you're drawing 3 tiles each time. But if you get that one that is the extra, then you'll be able to do 4 tiles. And if you happen to have 2 of those, and it's the bow and arrows that does that, you might be able to do 5, and that increases your ability to kill the mobs. And you also have TNT, which you can decide whether you want to use that or not when it comes up, and it does I believe it's 4. No. It does a lot of damage. I can't remember how much damage the TNT does, but it's a very powerful attack, and you might choose to use that to make sure that you kill something, especially if it's something like an Enderman, which is going to take a lot of damage to kill. But you don't have to make that choice until you've seen what you've got going on there. But if you use it, you lose it. Everything else you keep and are able to continue to use. And so you might wind up having to use it if you want to do even a low damage one, because you just got a bad luck. And so you have to choose, am I going to use the TNT or am I going to save it for later? And so that's interesting as well as far as that goes. As far as building goes, you are basically collecting these different types of buildings, and they have 3 different things going on. They have the biome that they're in, the material they're made out of, and the type of some sort of, I can't remember exactly what it goes, but the third thing. And so first round, you are trying to match up biomes and make sure that you have different biomes that are connected to one another on your mat. And the more that you have connected to one another, the more points you're going to get for that. But also, certain biomes are worth more than the other biomes because they're rarer and they don't come up as often. So you may try to go after some of the ones that give you more points, but you're going to have harder time getting those ones. Or you might go after the really easy biomes to get and get less points per biome, but you might be able to more easily get more of them down and connected to one another to be able to get more points that way. And then the second round, you're going to score based off of the type of building material. And so you want to try and plan even in the first round how you're going to get some of those already out and try to get some synergy going on in the buildings that you're building. And then the third round, you're going to have even yet another type of thing you're going to focus on. So you want to try and, as you're going, focus, yes, on the round you're in, but also focus on what you're going to need for round 2 and round 3 scoring. One of the neat things about Minecraft Builders and Biomes is you have this tower that you start out with of different wooden blocks, and you can only choose ones that you can see the top of and 2 sides of. And so you want to strategically try and pick which materials you're going to get based on what you're going to try and build. You may be looking at what others are trying to build and try to avoid too much fighting over materials there if possible. Or you may even want to try and rush and get things done before they can, and so then they don't get to build that, but you do. And so you want to be careful, though, about how quickly you grab materials from the top, because once that top row is gone, then you are going to score the first round. And once the second row is gone, you're going to score the second round. Once the third row is gone, you score the third round. And there is a fourth row, but that doesn't do anything for scoring. The game's over after the third round is gone. So you might want to try and dig a little bit deeper in the pile to avoid having the round end so quickly. Or you may want to rush and end it quickly so others aren't able to build because you've done what you feel you need to do, and you want to go ahead and get that scoring done for whatever round you're in, or even the end game scoring, because you know you're doing pretty well, you've got what you need, and you don't think other people have. So you may even want to, in that case, rush the scoring. And so there's a lot of different balance things going on in this game. Are you going to focus on killing mobs? Are you going to focus on building buildings? Are you going to do a little bit of both? Are you going to try and get more weapons so you will be more effective at killing mobs and getting the bonuses from that? But everything comes with a price. Whether you're going to have to give one way to get another way, and so you want to be careful that you're not doing too much on one thing that's not going to score you enough. And there's a lot of balance that goes into figuring out exactly what strategy you're going to use. I mean, you may go heavy build and just completely ignore the mobs. And again, there's some good bonuses that go along with killing the mobs. And so I think a lot of balance needs to be done in your strategy there. And I think it's a very good game as far as strategy goes, especially for a game that's very family weight. Families can easily play this game, but yet there is a lot of depth to it as well. And so I think it's a great game for families, and adults as well as children are all going to like this game. And so, especially if you enjoy Minecraft, this is a great game for you. And highly recommend this. This is probably this is definitely my favorite out of these games. Might even be my favorite Ravensburger game altogether. It's a very solid game. Great components, great strategy. Highly recommend Minecraft Builders and Biomes from Ravensburger Games. So those are our 4 Ravensburger games. I highly recommend, as I said, Minecraft and Horrified. Jungle Cruise, I think, is also a pretty solid game for what it is, for it being kind of one of those kind of roll and move type games. It has some decent strategy built in despite that style of game. And also, there's Gargoyles. I do recommend, if you do like Gargoyles, to give this a go, but I would also warn that Gargoyles doesn't have the highest replayability, and so I would say go ahead and keep that in mind whether you decide to buy it or not. So this has been my review of these 4 Ravensburger games. I hope this has been informative. It's helped you decide whether you want to get any of these games. And if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe to see more videos. And I'll catch you in the next one.